Alright, so welcome back everybody. So for this video, I'm going to show you guys how to play Garden Geckos. So in Garden Geckos, the objective of this game is we want to trap bugs, and we can get points, we can get victory points by trapping bugs. We're also going to want to place out geckos on certain patterns, okay? And certain patterns, so these are the pattern objective cards here. So we're going to want geckos on certain patterns to claim these to get victory points. We're also going to want to link our geckos to bugs to get victory points with these objective cards as well. That's the idea. So let me show you guys how you would get started. First of all, the player who goes last will always get to pick what bug is going to be in the middle. So let's just say player 2 is going to pick this this grasshopper, okay? That's just what they decide to pick, okay? So they're going to put that there right in the middle, all right? So now, on your turn, each player will start with 3 of these hex tiles, okay? And you'll each start with 5 geckos. Now, this is up to 6 players, so there's 6 different colors, so that way each player has 5 geckos. So that's the idea. So we have 5 basically geckos, which are going to help us get some victory points for sure. So on your turn, what you're going to want to do is you're going to look at your tiles, and you're going to want to choose one of these to place down. What you're placing down has to link to at least one matching type, so I couldn't put this here, for instance, okay? If I wanted to place the flower down here, I'd have to go something like this, okay? Now, when you place a tile down, it has to be touching one of the colors. But for future reference, you do not have to. So if this was the next tile placed, and this was to link to this color here, you'll notice this color does not match this one. That's fine, okay? That is perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But sometimes there will be potentially multiple colors that could very well match more than one hex, okay? But that's the general idea. So when you place down your hex here, you're also going to place down a gecko at the same time, okay? So this is how you're going to get your geckos down. They're going to be placed once per turn, and they're going to be placed with the hex. They always have to go on the hex that you're placing, and they always have to go on the one that matches too. So, you know, if there was my gecko here, for instance, and another player decided to go here, they couldn't put their gecko like this, for instance, because these two don't match here. So they would be forced, if they were to place this tile here like this, they'd be forced to place their gecko like so, okay? That's the general idea. Now, as you connect, you'll notice we have a grasshopper and we have this fly here. So we'll look at some of these cards here, and there's already an objective card that has those insects on there. So in order to complete this one, I have to have a gecko that is connected to each of these bugs. So I need to have a gecko that would be connected to 2 flies, a grasshopper, and a moth. Now, if I did manage this, and at the end of my turn, if I did manage this equation, I could take this objective card for the turn, okay? But, like I said, you're going to need to match the insects perfectly, okay? So that's the general idea of that. Now, as we start placing out more of these tiles, what's going to happen is eventually there's going to be, well, more geckos surrounding these hexes. And as more hexes come around here and surround a hex, so let's just try to get some of these surrounded, like so. Now I just need a water. There we go. So, for instance, now we have a hex that's completely surrounded. And then, let's just say that was like that. And then I was here, for instance. And then black player. Now let's say black player was to place this hex here, like so, okay? And then they place their gecko down. Now this entire section is completely surrounded. So this is a trapped bug. It is now completely surrounded by hexes. And so the player who has the most geckos gets the trapped bug. Here's the thing though. There's a tie. There's 3 green and 3 black. But black was the last player to place that hex down, so they break the tie. So the player that was the last one in line in the, as you have more players, the last one in line to place that tile down will break the tie and claim the trapped bug, which would get them one of these, okay? So they get one of these for that particular reason. So you're gonna wanna, try to get some points with these. You'll get 1 point for each of these, but you'll get some of them that way. That's the only way you're gonna get these here is by trapping the hexes with other hexes, and then the player who has the most geckos out would claim said insect. You're also going to want to try to complete objective cards too, of course. So let's see here. We have a green gecko here that is on the flowers. We have a green gecko here that's on this yellow pattern. And we have a green gecko here that's on this, this pattern here, for instance. And you'll notice this objective card, it completely matches this equation. So if I was to place my gecko down, so this was technically the next gecko that was placed down for green, right? That means that I could claim said objective card because I have a complete diamond in this direction with this type. I have a complete diamond here for this one, and I have a complete pattern, diamond pattern for that one as well, so I could claim this. At the end of the game, you're going to get a victory point for each insect that is shown on this white bar here, okay? So this would score me 2 victory points, basically, okay? This one, if it's completed, if it's an insect card, that one would give me 4 points. This pattern would complete me 5 points. This one would give me 2 points. That one would give me 3 points, and so on. So that's one of the ways you're going to score victory points is by placing out your geckos on patterns. Now, there is only 5 geckos in this game, okay? So when you have all of your geckos on a spot, so let's just, put some of these out, get all these geckos placed out, okay? So, maybe here, place out this gecko here. We can do that there. And then that places out the last green gecko there. We could go there. And that would place the last black gecko. And then let's just say now we've got all of our geckos completely placed out. And we're going to place our next hex. Well, we don't have any more geckos. So the geckos have to come from here. So, for instance, I could put that there, I guess. But then I would have to take a gecko from another location, maybe like here, for instance, and put him here as an idea, That's kind of how that's going to work. So you're going to have to take it's definitely a thinky, puzzly game because while you want to connect your geckos to various bugs here, and we'll explain the objectives in a moment for the bugs especially, since we haven't really done that, and while you want to try to get certain patterns completed as well, and see how there's 4 of these on here. So you would need 4 geckos on this particular pattern of your color, but you only have 5. So since there's not like 20 geckos, this is not going to be an easy one to complete. This one's a little easier because there's only 3, for instance. And there's some that have 5. But yes, it's not accumulative. Your geckos, you're placing out your geckos, they're not going to be accumulative. You're not going to be able to just be like, oh, I've got like 100 different insects now because I've got, 20 geckos placed out. So where you take your gecko from a location to another location, you have to really think about, because you could potentially be losing out on an objective you could go after that reveals itself later, and you're like, oh, I had that just a turn ago, but I had to move that gecko over here because I had to place out another tile, basically. So the game doesn't end when you've placed all 5 of your geckos, is what I'm saying. So the way the game is going to end, there's 3 ways the game can end. One way is if all of a particular insect in these trays here is completely exhausted. So if all of these green grasshoppers were gone and taken by other players, that would end the game instantly. Okay, so that's one way the game is going to end. All right. Another way the game is going to end is we have tons of tiles here. So these are all the tiles, and then that's the rest of them, and then a hand of 3 for the other player. Okay. So if all of these tiles are completely drafted, okay, that's another way the game is going to end. All right. Also, I forgot to mention this. At the end of your turn, after you place your gecko and your tile, then your gecko, and then maybe completed an objective if you could, the 4th thing you're going to do is you're going to draw up to your hand limit of 3. So you have 3 tiles to start with, but then you're going to use 1. That means you're going to draw another 1, okay? So that's drafting. You're going to draft 1. Now, if at any time in the game you don't like what you have in your hand, maybe there's a certain bug you need to place and connect a gecko to another bug, and you just do not have that bug. Oh, darn it, I need that worm, but I don't have the worm. Well, if you have a bug that you acquired earlier, like maybe this cockroach here, you can discard this cockroach or another bug that you might have to draw 3 more, should I say draft 3 more tiles to your equation, and then you can choose 3 to keep from this, and toss out the rest. Discard the rest. So potentially the game could end a little faster if players are discarding one of these insects to get better hexes. And you might need to do that occasionally. I played this game already, the solo mode, and the first half of the game, the green grasshoppers never showed up. There wasn't a single hex tile with them on there because they just didn't show up. And there was also no ladybugs either. And so most of the objectives I had out for the solo game, I couldn't complete because none of these were showing up. I wasn't drawing any. And so I realized I needed to discard one of these, or should I say, one of these worms. I had to discard one of these worms twice to draft 3 tiles, and then draft again later because I just wasn't getting the grasshoppers and the ladybugs to show up. Okay, so if there's a certain bug you need and you're not drawing them the normal way, you're not drafting them the normal way, it might take discarding one of your bugs that you've already trapped and collected to help you with that equation. And that will also obviously hasten the game a bit too by drafting those extra tiles, because you're only allowed to have 3 in your hand at any time anyways. And so that's the general idea. So that's another thing. So that's how that's going to work. So let's explain these objective cards. We have 3 different types here for the insects, So in order to complete a parallel objective, and that's what this is parallel, you need to have a gecko that's connected, or should I say between this fly, and then you'd have to have another gecko that is connected to that same fly that this one is connected to, but connected to another fly down here. Now it could be an orientation like that, or like that, or like that, and that's fine, but you need to have a parallel of geckos connected to these flies in a formation like that. And since this requires 3 flies and 2 of your geckos to complete this objective, that means that you only have 3 other geckos in other places. So make note of that. If you're trying to go for this objective, you don't want to take geckos. You don't want to take a gecko from here if you want to try to complete this at some point, especially if you're not getting the flies you need. to complete this early on, right? So that's how a parallel objective is going to go. So we could use an example of that because we have 2 flies out already. So let's use an example because, you know, that's good. So let's pause for a second. All right, so for instance, if I wanted to complete this objective, I'd have to have something like this. This gecko is just here because it's linking this location to this location. But it really starts here with this gecko attached, or should I say this fly attached to that fly with this gecko, connecting those 2 flies. So those are already connected. And then this fly is then connected, that was connected to this one. This fly is then connected to this exact gecko, this exact fly over here with this gecko in the middle. So there you go. Now we have the almost an exact replica of what you need on the card. And then this, you could take this at the end of your turn. If this was the tile placed and that was the gecko you just placed, for instance, you'd have a complete objective card. That's how the parallel ones will work. Now let me explain how the next ones will work, which are going to be the sequence ones. So let me fix this and I'll show you how the sequence ones will work. Okay, and so this is a sequence objective, all right? So in order to complete this, I would need to have a gecko that is connected to this fly and to this moth in one location. And then I would need to have another gecko that's connecting this worm to this ladybug in another location. So they could also technically all still somehow be connected in some way, but the point is we have this gecko here that is connected to this, that is connecting this worm to this ladybug, so that has been met. And then even though that this player here has a gecko between us, does not matter for the sequence, we do have a gecko that's connecting this moth to that fly, and so this is an objective card that we could potentially meet if this one was available. But that's how the sequence ones will work. Now let me just explain how the independent objective for the bugs will work. The independent bugs will work. So let me fix this again. All right, so here we have an independent objective, bug objective card. You'll notice there's no lines between any of these, so you do not need to be connecting bugs to complete this objective, but you need to have a gecko that is touching each one of these in order to do so. So we have this gecko here, this green gecko, attached or touching this moth. So this one is complete. We have a gecko over here that is touching, or basically connecting, doesn't matter, but touching this fly. So we've got a fly done as well. We also have a gecko over here that's touching a grasshopper, and so now this one is also done. And we also have a gecko over here that's touching a fly, and so now that one's done. And if this was available and this was the gecko and tile you just placed, you could complete this objective if this was the one that was available. That's how that's going to work. That's how you could claim this. So those are how the different objective cards are going to work. So let's just zoom out a bit. Okay, pausing came in handy for this video. Okay, because there were so many different patterns. All right, so now, with that said, there is another way other players will be able to score victory points. At the beginning of the game, each player is going to get one of these basically secret cards, these secret hidden agenda cards. And so let's say if player 1 had this is a ladybug. So for each insect, okay, so for each ladybug that that green gecko player had, each one of these, they would get 2 points, okay, for each one of these. But that's not all. If they had any objective cards that they completed that had a ladybug on this white bar at the bottom, they'd get 2 points for that ladybug because they have this, okay? But there is another type of hidden objective card as well. So this hidden objective card has the blue diamond on it. So for each gecko a player has, or no, not for each gecko, but for each, okay, let me start over. So the way this is going to work is you want to go for the biggest pattern possible. All right, so right now the biggest water pattern here is this one here, because we've got 3 tiles making up this water segment, okay? So basically, if I was to have this, I would have definitely wanted to try to build a huge river in some shape or form. So, you know, let's just say for the point of argument, there's no geckos here, okay? Let's say we've got something like this, and then let me find another one, like so, and let's just say that this is the biggest of that type of pattern, and a player had this hidden objective card. Well, they wouldn't be scoring off of that because it's not the biggest. They'd just be scoring off of this. So this one tile here is 1 point because it has just one diamond, one triangle, if you will, that makes up this river. So they would score 1 point for that. But you'll notice this has 2. But because it just has 2, it still only counts as 1 point for this hex tile, okay? But this tile has, well, 1, 2, 3, 4. So if it has 3 or 4 on it, then that means that the tile will score 2 points. So if they had this hidden objective card, they'd get 1, 2, 4, 5, and 6 points for this hidden objective, because that was the largest water that someone had built. So that's the idea. So there's a lot to think about. Not only are you trying to vie for, you know, connecting your geckos to certain bugs, to putting your geckos on certain patterns to score those objective cards, right? But you're also trying to potentially build the longest river, or the longest of a particular pattern, or just trying to get your hands on certain bugs, you know? Just trying to get as many moths as you can for extra points, whether they are on the objective cards, so you'll try to go for objective cards that have moths on them, potentially, for this particular card, for instance, and you'll probably try to trap moths if you can as well, for extra victory points that way. But basically, that's the way that you're going to score points in this game. That's pretty much the only way you're going to score points in this game. There is an advanced scoring way of scoring, but I'll let you guys figure that out on your own, because it is for advanced players. And so this is still a new to me game, and a new to mostly everybody. So I think that should be enough. So basically, let me just review. I explained the 3 ways that the game is going to end. Either the last one of these tiles is drafted, okay? All of a certain bug has been trapped, okay? So if it was all of these worms, that would end the game. And then the third way, which I did not explain. So the third way that the game can end is if a player has completed 6 of these objective cards. So if a player has completed 6 of these objective cards, then the game is over. That's the third way it's going to end. So I'm glad I made to make sure to go over everything once again. And then, of course, I explained how your turn is going to work. Okay, so objectives met, turn is going to work. I explained how you place out tiles out and how you're going to want to connect them. And obviously, I explained how to get victory points in this game as well. So I hope I explained this well enough for you guys to understand it and play it on your own. Like I said, this is a very thinky, puzzly game. So if you like puzzles, you might like this. If you don't like puzzles, you might not like this game. So thank you guys for watching this video, and I hope to see you guys again next time. Please like if you guys liked this how to play video, and subscribe. Have a nice day.